I wanted to make a short video today because I want to help explain why acupuncture can be so beneficial for women who are trying to conceive and really try to give you an idea of what it entails and what you can expect when you come for an acupuncture treatment, specifically when you're trying to get pregnant or you're trying to support or enhance your fertility. Because I think a lot of women get the recommendation to go to acupuncture, but no one really understands what they're getting before they get there, and no one really understands why acupuncture might be beneficial if you're starting the process of trying to get pregnant and struggling, whether it's just you've tried a few months or whether you have already kind of been through a bunch of the process and maybe moved on to IVF or even done one or two or more rounds of IVF. So the goal of the video today is just to give you an idea of what I offer specifically in my practice, and then what acupuncture can do to really help enhance one's fertility. So I think the place to start really is to look at as an acupuncturist, my core kind of focus and goal around what we're doing, which is always about moving you from a less fertile to a more fertile place. And the way I do that is basically by improving your overall health. So in women who are trying to get pregnant, an excellent kind of gauge or measure of their reproductive health is what their menstrual cycles look like. So for example, how many days do you have bleeding? Is there a lot of clotting? Is there a lot of cramping during that bleeding? Do you have a very short bleeding cycle, like you might only bleed for 1 or 2 days? Or do you have very, very heavy bleeding that lasts for 5, 6, 7 days? Those all give us really good indications of what's going on with the health of your menstrual cycle. That, along with do they come regularly, like every 28 days? Do you have clear cervical mucus around mid-cycle when you would be ovulating? Are your temperatures in the first half of your cycle, which is your follicular phase, averaging around 97.2 degrees, and the second half, your luteal phase, averaging around 98.2 degrees? We have what we would call kind of an ideal characteristic menstrual cycle. And it's ideal because studies have found after looking at literally hundreds of thousands of BBT charts, which is a basal body temperature chart, which is when you track your morning basal body temperature, and you keep track of it every day throughout your cycle. After analyzing literally hundreds of thousands of those charts, what they found was that there's kind of an ideal cycle. So that looks like 4 days of bleeding, no clotting, no cramping, a clear stop and start, as in you don't spot for a bunch of days beforehand or spot for a bunch of days after, ovulating around cycle day 14 with really obvious cervical mucus, and then a cycle length of about 28 days, again with your follicular phase temperatures averaging around 97.2 and your luteal phase temperatures averaging around 98.2. For women whose menstrual cycles fall into those general characteristics, they have a much, much higher likelihood of conceiving and then carrying a baby to term. So when you come in for acupuncture, our goal is always going to be to make you more healthy. That means we're looking at your menstrual cycle and trying to get your menstrual cycle closer and closer to those ideal characteristics. But it also means your overall health. So what I mean by that is, are you sleeping regularly? Do you wake up refreshed in the morning? Are you sleeping through the night and falling asleep easily? Are you digesting? Do you have regular bowel movements? Do you suffer from any kind of GI complaints, whether it's upper GI like acid reflux or lower GI like bloating and either kind of chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation? All of those things, do you have allergies? Do you have chronic headaches? Do you have any kind of issues that are problematic in your life? And lots of people don't necessarily see them as problematic, but they are symptoms that they're experiencing, and as an acupuncturist, we use those symptoms as evidence. Evidence to find different patterns and imbalances in the system that you might not find if you're looking quite as closely as an acupuncturist or an herbalist would be. So we're using where I'm using the information from your menstrual cycle that we collect from your BBT charts, but also just from your reporting, as well as all of the details of your health history. So when did you get your period first? Have you had any chronic illness? Do you have endometriosis? Do you have PCOS? Do you have any kind of underlying gynecological issues that may be hindering your fertility? We take all of that information and we boil it down into what we call in Chinese medicine your constitutional diagnosis. Your constitutional diagnosis is basically your individual pattern of health. And that becomes a crucial part of our treatment for you. Because in Chinese medicine, the way I practice, there are two main things that we focus on every time you come into the office to get treated. We focus on what's your core constitutional diagnosis, and we're always going to be treating that always. And number two, where are you in your menstrual cycle? Because the way to treat menstrual cycles and improve menstrual cycles is by improving each phase of the menstrual cycle. So by following and promoting the natural rhythm of your normal menstrual cycle, so that we're getting you closer and closer to those ideal menstrual characteristics, so that we are improving your overall health and improving your fertile potential. So those are our goals. That's what I'm always looking to do. That's how I come up with your core diagnosis, is gathering all of that information from test results, from what you're reporting, from your BBT chart, from your history, from all of that. Gather all that information, we come up with your core constitutional diagnosis. And we use acupuncture to really help stabilize and treat the menstrual cycle. But I use a bunch of other things as well to complement acupuncture, the actual needles. And those things might be Western nutraceuticals, which I consider very high-level supplements. So that's kind of a different ball game than what we're looking at Rite Aid or CVS or even GNC. These are very high-level, high-quality control supplements. And we're using them to support hormone regulation by providing key nutrients that your body needs to produce and regulate hormones, by improving your digestion so that when you are eating food, you're able to break down and absorb the nutrients from those foods, and then to prevent nutritional deficiencies. There are some situations where we are using supplements to, say, support egg health or decrease inflammation, say in the case of endometriosis, or regulate blood sugar, like in the case of PCOS. So supplements are an incredibly valuable tool that we can use to move your health forward, and I use them often with great success. So acupuncture, supplements, and then I look at whether or not Chinese herbs would be appropriate for you. The way that I use Chinese herbs is always based on your constitution and your menstrual cycle. I have found in 9 years of practice now that the very fastest way to make improvements in menstrual cycles, no matter what the problem is, you're not getting your period, you're not always ovulating, you have really short cycles, you have really long cycles, maybe your follicular phase, your first half of your cycle, temperatures are way too high, or your luteal phase is way too low, and so your temperatures aren't high enough during your second half of your cycle. Whatever the issue is, herbs tend to be the fastest way to treat and make changes in the characteristics of your menstrual cycle. So if that's something that we need to address for you specifically, I use herbs with great success. And the way that I use herbs specifically for fertility is that I base them very much on your BBT charts, which is your basal body temperature, your daily temperature tracking. We can learn an enormous amount of information from your BBT chart, and I use that to make really, really specific herbal protocols and other recommendations like supplements and diet and so forth, but for making really, really seriously individualized herbal prescriptions for you. And the way that I prescribe them is that you have a specific protocol or a specific prescription for your bleeding phase, for your follicular phase, and for your luteal phase. And I have found it to be wildly effective in regulating, stabilizing, and moving the characteristics of your particular menstrual cycle closer and closer to that ideal menstrual cycle. The other thing I use is diet and lifestyle changes. And the goal with diet and lifestyle is always to increase your intake of nutrient-dense foods and to decrease either your intake of kind of highly processed foods or sugar foods, foods that contain pesticides, chemicals, toxins, but also to avoid toxins in the household. So everything is based on increasing nutrients and decreasing anything that's going to burden the body. So it's not just foods, it's about what are you drinking? Are you drinking a lot of alcohol, a lot of caffeine? Are you looking at the kind of shampoo that you're using, the cleaning products in your house, the types of clothes that you're buying, and the amount of chemicals that are in your everyday, your laundry detergent, your toothbrush, your toothpaste, your deodorant, all of your beauty products that you use on a daily basis, even skin lotion, face wash, all of that stuff. So again, the goal is always to increase nutrients so that your body has everything it needs to run efficiently, but also to decrease anything that is hard for the body to process, like toxins of any kind. So when you come in for an appointment with me, I'm going to analyze everything. So your BBT charts, everything that you report, I'm going to ask you a ton of questions, going to look at any previous blood tests if you have them. And then we're going to make a really detailed plan that's all about getting you pregnant. Women come to me in all phases, like I mentioned. Either they want to try naturally, they don't want to move to anything more aggressive like IUI or IVF, and so they want to do everything that they can on their own with my help to really optimize their fertility. Or women are going to have already gone through more advanced technologies like IVF, and they want to increase their odds of success. It doesn't matter where you are. We're always going to be moving your health from, kind of a less healthy place to a more healthy place in order to increase your fertile potential. So I hope that gives everybody an idea of kind of what I do, what I offer, how acupuncture and kind of complementary things such as herbs and supplements and diet can help. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out either via my Facebook page or my personal email, which is listed on my website, which is www.angelabelacupuncture.com. And otherwise, I really hope that this has been helpful to give you a better idea of what I'm trying to do in regards to supporting and enhancing fertility. And like I said, if you have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to answer questions anytime, and I really look forward to talking to you.